This is the Cliff Yates Show. Personal growth, motivation, inspiration, and philosophies for a great life.
You're on the Cliff Yates Show, and you're in the right place. I'm all about motivation, inspiration, personal growth, but I also was a cop for 35 years, and I'm now an author. I have a few books out there, and now I have some author friends who are also retired cops, and today I have a special guest, and I thought, we're East Coast, West Coast. I retired from the LA Sheriff's Department. I want to introduce my good friend who's retired from the NYPD as a detective, Vic Ferrari. Thanks for joining me, buddy.
Hey, Cliff. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And how many years did you do on NYPD?
Almost 20 to the day. 20 was enough. As much as I loved it, like anything else, it ran its course.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did. Let's say I did 30 years in LA, and then I was also a cop in upstate New York. But I know we don't recognize upstate people.
That's not true. I did a lot of work with our Department of Motor Vehicles headquarters was in Albany, New York, which is about 120 miles north of the five boroughs. So occasionally we would go up there and deal with their investigators and stuff. So no, we acknowledged, and we did a lot of cases with the New York State Police as well. Yeah,
and then how did your career go as far as patrol and detectives, and what units did you work for?
Well, I'm a city kid. I was born and raised in the Bronx. Always wanted to be an NYPD cop. I mean, watching, French Connection, the 7-Ups, the Rockford Files. In my neighborhood, you either went the civil service route, the mafia, or some guys went to college. So I went the civil service route and went to the NYPD. I had a great 20-year career. I worked in a lot of different places. I was one of those guys when they'd say, in the NYPD, they always say, never raise your hand, don't volunteer. And I always did. And I mean, Sometimes it backfired, but a lot of times it opened up opportunities for me. So I worked on patrol in the South Bronx. I was in a DUI unit, which I absolutely hated. I worked in a plainclothes, like decoy anti-crime unit. I worked in the Manhattan North Narcotics Division during the early 90s, during the crack epidemic, doing buy and bust operations. And my last 10 years, I was a detective in the NYPD's auto crime division. So anything with chop shops, stolen vehicles, changing VIN numbers on cars, exporting stolen vehicles out of the country, insurance fraud. We had a lot of insurance fraud in New York. And I did that for 10 out of my 20 years. And, like you were asking me, 20 years is enough. And I equate a 20-year career with the NYPD as a merry-go-round.
Yeah.
You got your ups, you got your downs. You can't believe you're on this thing. There's things flying by. But if you stay on Seabiscuit too long, you're going to find yourself, he's going to throw you on your head. So 20 years now.
Hey, I'm going to put the links to your books, too. I love your book, Through the Looking Glass. If anybody wants to go behind the scenes, behind the yellow tape, and know what it's like really to be a cop in the NYPD during the hot years, that book is... Man, you're right on. It's from a fellow street cop. You tell it all, and it's a great book.
Thank you. And I actually named my podcast the same thing with the same artwork, NYPD Through the Looking Glass. And same thing. I bring on cops from different units and of the NYPD and different police departments, and we just talk shop.
Yeah, and I think still the largest in the country, right? 10,000 plus or?
No, 40.
40,000?
Yeah, we're between 30 and 40,000.
That makes sense because I think we just went over like 10,000 or something. So, yeah, you guys were always, maybe it was back in the 70s or 80s, I was thinking 10,000, but 40,000 coppers, just the largest law enforcement agency in the nation. We always hung our hat that we were the largest sheriff's department in the world, but we had to hang our hat on something. I always liked stolen cars, too, and I was working South Central LA in the 1980s. And were you in auto theft during those years, or?
I always had my hand in it. I came on at 87, but I grew up in a neighborhood where stealing a car was a rite of passage. I worked at a gas station, and the kids were always breezing through there with a broken ignition, punch door lock, punch vent window, dirty plates on a clean car, a lot of the telltale signs. And, they were either trying to sell the car, sell you a radio. So I knew what to look for. Yeah. So even as a cop, sometimes on a foot post, as a rookie cop, I'd walk around, I'd look at the cars, I'd see if a car was stolen, I'd run the plate, and then I'd just kind of hang out across the street and sit on it. And if somebody got in it, sometimes, I'd run over and try to pull the guy out of the car. Sometimes I went for a ride and got dragged, and sometimes I got the guy out of the car.
Is that right? Did that happen to you? Somebody took off with you hanging on? Oh, my God.
Several times.
Wow, that is dangerous, Vic, and you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I know. Tactics. I was involved in a thing with my old partner. We had just in New York, you have what's called gypsy cabs.
Right,
So it's
yeah.
usually a beat up four-door car. The driver has no license, no registration, no insurance. It's usually an illegal alien. And they buzz the bus stops. And what they do is they go by the bus stops, the train stations, give me $2, give me $3, and then we'll take you the rest of your ride home. And it's great until you get into an accident and they don't have insurance and then you're screwed.
Yeah.
What oftentimes will happen
Yeah.
with these gypsy cabs is they'll rent them to each other. And one guy doesn't bring the car back in a timely manner. That guy runs to the police and puts an alarm on it to get his car back. And oftentimes we'd run a plate of a gypsy cab. It would come back stolen. You pull the driver out at gunpoint and it's his cab. He got it back. He never thought to go back to the police after putting an alarm on. So we run the plate on this car, comes back stolen the day before. And the radio was busy, so he said, you know what, let's just not put this over. Let's just try to pin him in traffic. And that's, when you're in auto theft, the car chases are great, but you don't want to get somebody hurt or killed. You don't want to wreck the car.
Yeah.
You don't want to get hurt. You just want the body in the car with as little problems as possible. So you try to sit behind them. We had an unmarked car that looked like a cab. So you just kind of want to sit back, run the plate. Hopefully another R&P or radio car will cut them off. Or you get them stuck in traffic where they got nowhere to go because New York is such a densely populated area.
Oh, yeah.
You get them in an intersection. There's a car in front of them, a car on the sides of them. You just roll up on their bumper. You either give it a tap or you just jump out and yoke them, just rip them out of the car. We run out. We pull open the doors. I grab the passenger. My partner grabs the driver. And it's snowing out in New York, and those snowplows don't come around very often. So there's like a couple inches of snow. The light changes, the car moves in front, and the driver slams his foot on the gas. It was a front-wheel drive. I think it was like a Nissan Pulsar. Now I'm going for the Kentucky sleigh ride. I'm hanging on to the passenger, trying to pull him out of the car. Can't rip him out. I finally let go. I fall down. They go through the intersection, and here comes a regular radio car just passing through, has no idea what's going on. They T-bone the radio car, right? So we're running down the block. Stop them, the car is stolen, right? The two cops get out, and they're scratching their head like, shit, we just had an accident, right? The door's open.
Oh, man.
The driver's got a .357 Magnum, and he wheels to shoot my partner. But my partner's a big, athletic guy. My partner just took his pistol and slapped him in the face with the old .38s and cracked him and knocked him back into the open door of the car. And I heard glass break, right? I jump on the other side, and I'm fighting with the passenger. I finally get him cuffed up, and I see like a brawl going on. The two cops from the other precinct and my partner, I'm like, whoa, take it easy. But I didn't see the gun. What had happened was when my partner cracked the guy with the gun, the .357 hit the ground, and he fell on it like a fumble, and he was trying to get it up to get a couple of shots off. So they're doing the tarantella over there, trying to get his arm so he can't pick up the gun. So finally, they cuff him up, they pick him up, and one of the young cops from, I think it was the 4.6, picks up this hand cannon, a .357 Magnum. He goes, your partner dropped his gun. I go, that's not my partner's .38. I go, look at it. He goes, oh, shit. So, sometimes a simple car arrest, you can lose your life very easily.
Absolutely. So dangerous. But I remember in the 80s, it was always in South Central. They were so easy to steal. It was the Toyota Corollas and the Camrys. The Camrys were really easy to steal. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, because the ignitions, it was like this flimsy metal on there. I had seen, and that's the first car a kid learns how to steal because it's just so easy to steal. It's with a decent screwdriver. I saw a guy steal one with a sharpened pair of scissors. Remember in the old days, like your grandmother would have those big scissors to cut fabric? Got it in there and crack.
We used to. They were so prevalent. We could just pull up at a light and we'd look over and see the screwdriver sticking out of the steering column. Here we go. Or else, they would put. How they'd crack the column and they'd put a rag over it. There was all these signs.
Bandana.
Bandana. Here we go. We got another stolen. But I used to like getting stolen cars and returning people their cars. Hopefully they wouldn't get smashed up in a chase. But but it was it always, because if you ran a plate and it come back stolen, then the radio off lady she'd be notified and she'd put it out to all the cars. So everybody knew you got a stolen car and you do a felony stop. And it was just, it was good. Yeah. We got a
You know
lot
what?
in
It's
Compton,
funny
man.
because I watch different police departments, like, when Live PD was on, and now I guess it's called On Patrol Live. And, in New
Yeah.
York, I mean, Fox News would always break into a chase in Los
Yeah.
Angeles. They would,
Correct.
you'd be fixated on it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool. And it's funny because NYPD, there was just so many cops.
Yeah.
Like, we were talking about 40,000 cops. It's not like you see in other police departments where it's driver, put your hands out the window. Cops are fighting over each other to get to that car.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the person is going right out that window.
Yeah.
It's totally different than anything you've ever seen in any other, because there's just so many of us. The guys are just
Yeah.
all jacked up, and it's like, just get your hands on them and get them out of the car.
Yeah, and that was kind of the way we did it in upstate in the 70s. But in the 80s out in LA, they just doing felony stops, and they didn't want you running up on the car. And so everybody had to do a felony stop on a stolen car. But it was funny. So one night in East Compton, my partner and I, we stopped the car, and the car was registered way out of the area, like in Sacramento, and so we got the guy to the car, and he had a story. It's my grandmother's car, and she was down here. He had no paperwork, no license. So I'm taking him back to the car, and I had opened the back door to the police car, was having him sit in the back seat. And so my partner saw this, how it was going good. And so then he went into the car to search the car. And as he did that, the guy turned and he bolted and he ran. And now I'm chasing him up Atlantic Avenue in East Compton. And we're going down and I'm calling this chase. And he's searching the car, and he heard the car number, and he's thinking, that sounds like our car number. And then he looked back, and he saw, oh, man, I was gone. And then I ended up commandeering a citizen. I jumped in his car, and we chased the guy, and we got him. But it was all fun and games.
Yeah, it's if you grew up as a kid in our generation playing cops and robbers, becoming a cop was the greatest. It was the greatest thing in the world. It was like you said, commandeering cars or getting inventive. Like sometimes we'd be sitting in auto crime, we'd sit on a stolen car, right? And a lot of times what these guys would do is they'd steal a high-end car, they'd park it in a nice neighborhood to let it cool off until the buyer was ready. Be it the car's going into a shipping container or it's going to a chop shop, but the guy wants it at 5 o'clock on a Friday so he can keep that gate closed to cut that thing up. So the bones truck comes rolling in on Saturday and gets the cowl out and all the frame. So we'd sit on a stolen car sometimes, and you knew a lot of times, like, it was in the neighborhood of the thief. So you're keeping his eye on it. So we would get there first thing in the morning, and a couple of times we'd get like a dozen eggs out of a bodega before anybody got up and egged the crap out of the car.
Yeah.
Just egg the stolen car or give it a flat.
Yeah.
And, the air out of one tire. So this way, the guy would say, oh, crap, I got to get this thing washed because it's going to raise the tension that here's this, $60,000 Mercedes covered in egg.
That's
the guy
right.
would jump in
Yeah.
and take it to a car. We'd kind of like try to force their hand, or the guy would change the tire before he would take it, or, the guy would come out with a plug-in compressor. So we would do things to kind of egg them on to move that car.
Yeah. These chop shops, man, I know they used to like the Lincoln Navigators, and man, they would go quick. Was that kind of a vehicle of choice? What were the vehicles of choice for the chop shops, or were they just anything?
It just depends. You had, like, you're talking about auto theft in New York. In the 90s, we were averaging 150,000 stolen vehicles a year.
That's
so
crazy.
Was shooting fish in the
Wow.
barrel. If you rode around with a computer car, it was like playing the slots at Atlantic City.
Yeah.
It's like you run enough plates, you're getting a hit, and it's off to the races.
Yeah.
Car thieves, there's different types of car thieves stealing for different things. So you had the kids, like kids are junkies, right?
Joyriding,
They're the ones that steal. They steal the little Corollas, the Dodge minivans, because they don't stand out, and they're a couple of years older. I mean, a junkie knows he's going to get spotted driving around in a convertible, So, but our mostly stolen car was Honda Accord, Toyota Camry, because the more cars there are out there, the more popular a car is, the more accidents there are with that car, and then there's the more the need for that car. So, and they would chop the front a lot of times, because most cars, they get hit in the front, they're taking the fans in the front, the bumper skin, the hood, or sometimes they'll tag it, take all the VIN numbers off it, and then they throw a salvage VIN number on there.
That's right. Yeah. And for a while they stole those catalytic converters. That was a big thing. Everybody stole those things. off the
That was
cars.
starting to become a thing, like that. Like in New York when I was active,
Yeah,
that really. But now it is. But I mean,
yeah,
back then, no.
yeah. It's funny. Yeah. So yeah, it's amazing how they would punch those ignitions, and then I don't think the newer cars they do other stuff now, right? I don't know how they steal them with all
Yeah,
the
now it's
electronics.
the key fob, but I mean, these guys are fat. They figure things out.
Yeah.
They learn how to reprogram the car. You're
Oh
talking
yeah.
about like we used to sit by the scrap metal process. This is before like the catalytic converters, because a guy that's got a chop shop, be it in his backyard, in his garage, or even a body shop that's got
Yeah.
enough room that they'll bring a steel in there from time to time, they got to get the bones out,
Yeah.
right? So there's a bones truck. It's usually a guy that drives around with a van or a flatbed, and he takes the scrap metal, and they just give it to him, or they'll give him $100, get this out of here. So we used to call it robbing the stagecoach. We'd
Yeah.
set up by the scrap metal, and there was only so many in the Bronx, right?
Yeah.
And you'd see this flatbed truck coming with two husks of a car on there, and do you have the title for this or no?
Yeah.
And they'd come back stolen, like, where'd you get it? And he
Yeah.
would tell us, where we got it, and then we get a warrant and hit the place.
Yeah, in Compton, we would just be, I mean, you come down an alley, man, there'd be nothing left of this car except for, just like you say, the frame. They've taken everything. All the wheels are gone. It's just sitting there and just amazing. Now, here's another recovery, But we like to get them rolling.
What's funny? Like, they were so damn smart, some of them. So one of the guys in our Brooklyn office had a case where it took them a while to figure it out. Like, you're driving around a neighborhood and there's nothing there, and then all of a sudden you go get a coffee, you come back and there's a dump stolen car there. And like, how the frig did this get here? Like, stripped, no wheels, no nothing, right? One of the detectives in our office, I think it was the Brooklyn office. These guys, they had this. It was like it looked like a moving truck, right? But the moving truck had like a winch in it, and what would happen was there would be a stripped car in the back of a moving truck, and they would open the doors and hit a button, and it would like spit it out. It was the wildest thing. So
oh my God!
You was like, how did it get here? Like I didn't see a flatbed truck drive by, and because that takes time to slide it off the bed. They had a moving truck with like hydraulics to like shoot out a stolen car.
Wow!
And then we worked another case where this body shop never wanted to bring in stolen cars, but they wanted the parts. So what they would do is they would steal a car and they would park it near a school during the daytime, right? So all the teachers got their newer cars there, right? Then they would hire a junkie, and the junkie would get there about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we finally caught him. We filmed it. The junkie, he looked like an old man with a little shitty tool set, right? And he's just sitting there, and if you drove by, you just saw, it's an old man working on his car. What he was doing was he was unbolting all the sheet metal.
Oh my God!
He would unbolt the fenders.
Yeah.
He would unbolt the doors, right?
Yeah.
A car would drive by, right?
Yeah.
No cops are around. A van would pull up. 3, 4 strong guys would jump out and just pull the sheet because everything's unbolted. So then they would just pull everything off and shove it in the van and drive off like in 10 seconds. And you're like, how did this get here?
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. Man, the things that they would do to steal cars, just crazy. Remember the club? They used to put the club on. People still use the club. That club on the steering wheel.
New York would cut the steering wheel and then just slide the club off.
They did the same thing in L.A. They cut the steering wheel, then it would pull the club off. But I mean that
You know what though? It's like anything else. It's going to deter the guy that doesn't have a hacksaw blade.
Yeah.
And it's going to deter the guy that does have a hacksaw blade but just doesn't have time for this shit tonight.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I'm not taking the chance.
Yeah.
There's another Toyota Camry. There's another Honda
Exactly.
Accord with Bose speakers.
Unless it's a really high-end vehicle they have a specific order for, they're too
Right.
lazy. They're not going to take the time to do that. They're going to go on to the next car.
Well, think about it. The only overhead a car thief has is going to jail.
That's
So
about
if you
it.
can
Yeah.
minimize that, right?
Yeah. And now, who knows? They might not even go to jail for who knows.
That's true, too.
You only stole one car? See you later. Here's an appearance ticket. Oh, my goodness. Those were good times. What else was I going to ask you about? We call them G-rides. Did you guys have a name for stolen cars? Or
We had different names for different, like, we used to call it a fresh kill. if you got one that wasn't reported yet.
Oh, yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
right.
Like,
Yeah, unreported.
working the midnights or 6 at night till 2 in the morning. The owner doesn't know their car got clipped.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
you go to pull a car over, he takes off, you're running the plate, it doesn't come back stolen, you finally catch it, then you call the owner up and it's like, do you have, a Dodge Saturn or whatever? Yeah. Was it stolen? No. Go look out your window. Oh,
Oh, I
shit,
love doing that. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. What was I going to tell you? I was going to tell you, the day of the OJ was running in the Bronco. I was working in San Dimas, California, and I was working some traffic, and a kid went through. I could see he was a young kid, and the chase was on. We ended up driving all through into this golf course, all on the 9th green, and tearing it up, and into the parking lot. People were throwing their clubs, and we finally got him in an intersection. A young kid, never committed a crime in his life, and he said he had seen the chase on TV. He thought it looked like fun. And his parents were so upset. He was an Asian kid, and his parents were so upset with him. Oh, my God.
Probably beat his ass.
I wouldn't be surprised, man. He was, but I just never forget that, man. Wow. So how long were you in? How long were you in that unit?
What's that? I was in the auto crime division 10 years, and then before that, I was in the auto loss in the unit, which is like the AAA affiliate. That's a borough unit where, they want guys to work for a while before they actually get into auto crime. But I was doing auto theft on patrol. That was my thing. Every cop's got a niche, you know what I mean? Like every cop's got their game that they enjoy. There's gun guys, there's car guys, there's guys
dope
like
guys, yeah.
Like to do fraud.
I like stolen cars, but that was just because I like to call it, or it was fun, and I like to get the people's cars back. I mean, in Long Beach, so they had Long Beach, California. They had a procedure at the time where they would, if you reported your car. So when we went to a reported stolen house or wherever, my car was just stolen. We, at the time we didn't have, even before computers, we got on their phone and we called in for the report number, and then we had it entered into the stolen vehicle system right from there. So when they reported it and we went to their house, it was in the system within a few minutes. Now, Long Beach, they waited 24 hours for some reason. But all the gang members and the crooks knew that they stole a car out of Long Beach. We got 24 hours to use this thing right before it comes back reported. Kind of a weird procedure to do that.
Long Beach is where you have the port, right?
Yeah.
We had a case. I don't know if we talked about it on that other show, but we had a case. We had Asian nationals in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously government sponsored. And this Asian guy hooks up with a Jamaican middleman from the Bronx. The middleman knows all these car thieves. So the Asian will pay this Jamaican guy $5,000 an Audi. So the Jamaican knows all these car thieves. So he gives him $5,000. The Jamaican gives the thieves between $500 and $1,000, depending on the thief.
Right.
So they steal these Audis, and they were shipping 25 to 30 a week.
Wow.
They'd steal the Audis, they'd park them on the street, give them a couple of days to cool off. Once they were clean, they'd bring them out to Brooklyn. And this was an industrial area with factories and stuff. They'd bring 2-3 Audis into the location at a time. They'd close the garage. Inside, you had shipping containers. So they would drive 2 stolen Audis in per shipping container. They'd let the air out of the tires so the Audis would sit low in the container. Then what they would do is the workers inside who were in on this, they would build a platform and it's like above it. Then they would hoist another 1 or 2 Audis to get them in there. So each shipping container contained between 3 and 4 stolen Audi A6s.
Wow.
Then they had a trucking company take the containers, bring it out to Newark. They were put on trains, railed across the United States to Long Beach, and then they were shipped to Shanghai. So we had multiple wiretaps going. We had wiretaps on the Asian phones. We needed NYPD detectives from different areas we pulled that spoke Mandarin and Cantonese. That's the beauty of the NYPD because there's just so many cops. It's so diverse.
Yeah.
Then we had Spanish detectives monitoring, our thieves were Spanish monitoring their calls. And the funny thing is, so you got this international shipping case going, right? But then on the phone intercepts, we start realizing these guys are in the murder for hire business. They whack this guy, let's whack that guy. In the middle of that case, 2 for the fringe players on that case, our whole crew, I mean, they weren't busy enough stealing 30 Audis a month. They went down to, I think it was Woodbridge, Virginia, and they did a commercial burglary of a Harley Davidson motorcycle dealership. and they went down with a U-Haul truck and filled this U-Haul truck. I mean, they cut the power to the building. I mean, these guys were good. Hit this Harley Davidson dealer, bring all the crap back up to the Bronx, and they're selling it piecemeal out of this guy's garage. Well, one of the local kids knows that this guy has got hot stuff in his garage. They break into the garage and they steal the stolen shit. Well, this guy gets pissed off and whacks this kid. So in the middle of the case, we had to pull 2 of the thieves off because they had committed a homicide. But once we took that case down, I mean, we solved or cleared. I wouldn't say solved but we cleared about 15 homicides.
Wow. That's a good case. Wow. You never know where something's going to lead. It's like, how they get the son of Sam with a parking ticket or something. You never know.
There was another, in that case, we're pretty sure one of the Asian guys did a homicide in New Jersey because they were so damn cryptic. And again, there's language barriers. And then we had our Asian detectives. I mean, Chinese was their second language. Like they learned it from their parents. They were talking about taking care of somebody in New Jersey, at one point, and we couldn't figure out what, where, or when. So it was one of those things that went by the wayside.
Yeah. What, remember, did you, LoJack was kind of a pain in the neck. It really wasn't very good. Did you like it, or you remember LoJack?
When that first started, it was great because the thieves didn't know about it. The body shops didn't know about it. And LoJack in its inception, you were like a German submarine commander. You're sitting in a car, and it was like this old antiquated screen would go bing,
and
a code would pop up. You'd have to run the code through Central, or if you had a computer code, you could run the code. It would tell you stolen Audi A6 from the 4-6 precinct.
Yeah.
And it was a circle with dots.
Yeah, and it showed you directions. We'd have to have 2 or 3 cars to like zero in on it, right? Yeah.
And the thing is, like in New York, because you have so much stuff, it sometimes the signal would just bounce around. Sometimes it would take a good part of a day to pin this thing down. And if it was moving, forget it.
Yeah.
But we did. We recovered a lot of cars. It's funny. So I'm working in auto larceny, and the LoJack liaison, and the liaison was always a retired cop that got a job with LoJack, so he could interact with us.
Exactly.
And help us track cars. And he comes to us and he says, I've got 5 or 6 guys from the Moscow Police Department, and they want to do a tour of your facility. So I asked our commanding officer. He says, yeah, I don't give a shit. So this LoJack guy with a van shows up with 5 of the roughest looking guys I've ever seen in my life. Like, these guys didn't look like cops, all right? Yeah. Moscow Police Department at that time, this is 94, 95. These guys look like bouncers at a fucking club. Like, big, they were all smoking, like rough-looking fucking guys. Like, if you wanted to pick a Russian hitman from a movie like Central Casting, these guys were it, right? Their handler was probably a KGB agent. He was the only guy that spoke English, right?
Yeah.
So they were like kids in a candy store. Yes, NYPD. And they're like looking at the cars. They're playing with the sirens, right? And then we got the question and answer session. So their handler is fielding questions, and then he's interpreting it. He goes, what kind of a gun do you use to stop car? I was like, well, we don't shoot into cars here. Really? And then he goes, how do you get confession? So I had to explain to him, like, we don't go around tuning people up. There's a thing called Miranda warnings, and you don't just go around like, that's TV. And they looked at us like we were the biggest pussies. Like by the 4th question, they were done with us, right? Like NYPD, they're not shit. So the handler goes out to the van. He comes back with this case, and he opens it up. It looked like bronze medals from the Olympics.
Yeah, they were badges, right?
No. They were coins.
Oh, coins.
They're written in Russian, supposedly commemorating the 60th anniversary of the Moscow Police. Now, it could have said, kiss my Russian ass. Communist, you know what I mean? Like, they could have been insulting us, but we were like, thank you. But typical NYPD, nobody told us to get them anything, so we felt bad. So I run up to the locker room with a garbage bag, and I start grabbing hats and nightsticks that fucking are laying around, like old handcuff kit, like leather shit, that old bulletproof vests, like shit that's going to go in the garbage. These guys tore open the bag. They were fighting over it.
Oh, my God.
Like, they were fighting over I had to make a second run up there and get more crap for them.
They probably don't have any of that equipment, right? They probably have to. use their
I
own
think they just
stuff.
drive around in plain clothes and kick people's asses. Like
That's
I
probably
watched an episode of some cop show when they were following them out there, and like they're no
yeah.
joke.
Oh, I can only imagine how they operate. Oh my goodness, that's crazy. Hey, what was the next thing that came after LoJack? Was it Teletrack or what was it called? Do you remember it?
We had I don't know if that OnStar. I
OnStar,
remember.
yeah. OnStar, I think that, and there was another one though too, but it gave you the exact location, right? You could get on the phone and they go, the car's at the corner of Atlantic and Long Beach, and they could tell you exactly where it was, right?
I think they could also listen into the car because
Yeah.
I remember one time. I remember the dispatcher was talking to the OnStar person. They could hear voices inside the car, and I know they could shut the car off.
That's right. They could
could
shut it off.
disable
That's right. They could shut it down. I think they used to ask, "Do you want us to shut the car off?" Yeah, shut it off. And they would give us the exact location, and we would swoop in on them. Yeah, that was crazy. We liked that better. And I think there was something called Teletrack or something too. That was just a more exact, precise. You had to like pay extra if you bought the car. Do you want a Teletrack? You know, and it was a thing that got activated.
It was like an option.
Yeah, I think you could probably remove it if you knew how to. But you know, they hid those things up in the frame. I don't think it was very easy once they put them in. But we
I
liked that.
remember, in the NYPD, every precinct, it's called rotation tow.
Yeah.
So if you recover a stolen vehicle, they don't want you getting hung up with taking it to the pound if you're a patrol cop. So every precinct had 3 or 4 tow companies, and they were in a rotation.
Right.
And you would call them up. They would tow the car.
We had
you
the
would
same
send
thing.
a letter
Yeah.
to the owner, and then they would rack up the storage fees and charge the
Yeah.
guy for the tow and the storage
Yeah.
fees. It was a racket.
Oh, it was a
But,
racket. Oh my God, they made so much money off of our recovered. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember there was an old Irishman. He's dead now, but he owned a towing company. He was an interesting character. He used to race pigeons, all sorts of crazy shit. But anyway, I remember one time him telling me, I finally found out where they keep that fucking LoJack. I go, what are you talking about?
Oh
He
really?
goes,
Oh my
because
God.
sometimes the cops wouldn't cancel the alarm.
Exactly.
And then other cops from different precincts would show up to his yard, like cutting his lawn.
Yeah.
So he finally figured out where it was, and he would unplug it. And I go, don't get hung up
Yeah.
with that. He was, like I said, I went into his office one day. He's got a microscope, and he's examining a slide of pigeon poop. I go, what the fuck are you doing? And he goes, my birds are sick. He goes, I want to win my pigeon race. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. Hey man, pigeons is a big thing. I had pigeons when I was a kid. I didn't race them or anything, but I know they have racers and all that other
Oh, yeah.
stuff. And what year did you retire?
I was active from 87 to 2007.
2007. Okay, cool. And you have another book too, right? It's called Law and Disorder. Is that one out there?
Yeah, NYPD Law and Disorder. Let me see. I have it right here. It's got a picture of a cop.
I like that. I like that one. Yeah, I haven't read that one yet.
Car.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's scratching his head. There's a bad guy escaping from the back seat. That happens all the time.
Oh my God, I
book
know.
Is, it's a behind-the-scenes look into the NYPD, and there's a lot of embarrassing stories about myself, like things that happened to me. Like one time, I make a 4-kilo collar on a car stop. I'm on top of the world. I go across the street from the courthouse to celebrate. I eat some Italian food. My stomach goes. I don't want to use the bathroom across the street in the courthouse because it's a dungeon and no toilet paper. So there's a food court across the street in this little mall. I go in there. I'm in uniform. I drop my pants to the floor. I put my gun belt on the bathroom door. I'm getting ready for liftoff.
Yeah.
Bunch of teenagers come bursting into the men's room, and they're hitting the hand dryers. They're turning on the sinks. I'm like, oh, shit. Like, I'm in uniform, but I'm quite vulnerable with my pants down to my ankle.
Yeah, you
All
are.
of a sudden, it gets quiet. Yeah, it gets quiet. One of the teenagers runs into the next stall, jumps up on the toilet, reaches over and grabs my gun belt. I jump up with my left hand trying to pull up my pants. I grab around the neck, right?
Wow.
Now he's got my gun belt. So now I let go of my pants, and it's a hockey fight. I'm punching him in the face, tell him to let go of the gun belt. His friends run in the next stall. They grab his legs. Now it's a tug of war with this kid and my gun belt. Finally, he lets go of the gun belt, hits the floor. They run out. I buck the wall. I put my pants on. I put on my gun belt. I run out into the food court. They're gone. And there's like this 300-pound porter with one of them floor buffing machines with his Sonny Walkman. I go, Poppy, you see any kids run out of here? Takes off the Walkman, looks up, burps, and says no. So, like in the book, and it's true, what do I do at that point? Call the police on myself? The fourth floor precinct would have shown up, and I would have been the laughing stock of the Bronx.
Exactly.
So I
You
kept that
can't.
story to
No.
myself until I retired.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's crazy, man. And did you guys? You had radios when you came on, right? Already?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We didn't have any radios till I don't know when. So when I came on, and we're working South Central at my training officer, we used to hang our mic out the window. We'd have to fight our way back to the car. He said, always hang your mic out so you can get to your mic. You can at least fight to your mic, you know. So when we got
When
radios,
did you get hired?
I got hired in L.A. in '83.
And they didn't have radios, portable radios?
No, they didn't have any radios. You know, a lot of departments had them, but when you know how it is in New York, if they go to radios, then they got to buy 10,000 of them. You know what I mean? So it's not like a small PD where they can just buy 12.
More than that, yeah. We had the big, thick Motorolas. We used to call it the brick.
Bricks? Yeah, we had those two first. Yeah. So then when we got the radios, man, that was like, what? We got radios? Man, this is great. What about your logs? When I started, they had paper logs. There was no computers in the car. Did you have computers in the car when you started?
The computer terminals started probably a couple of years before I got hired. Every precinct had one. By the time I got hired, maybe each precinct had two cars. But that computer was strictly to run plates, driver's licenses, and warrants. There was no doing reports. It was a little tiny terminal. Then probably about 95, 96, it looked more like a laptop.
Yeah, that's right.
You weren't doing reports on them. It was strictly to run things.
Right. Yeah, I don't think we got the kind that it looks like a laptop and you could do your reports and send it to the sergeant was in like 2010 or something like that. Yeah. So, but, and you were already gone in LAPD or in NYPD. Wow. That's crazy. So you've been writing ever since you've been retired, or did you do anything else?
Yeah, no, I did my 20. I retired. I moved down to Florida, and
that's right.
got
We're both in Florida now.
I became a cop down here for a cup of coffee, probably 6 to 8 months. And it was like having a stroke and having to learn everything different. So I went from investigating organized crime in America's largest police department to a bad episode of Reno 911. Great police department, but it's different. New York is different than Florida, and it just is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
We never was I in a DUI unit? Yes, I absolutely hated it in New York. But if you were a precinct cop in New York, you didn't get involved. We didn't get involved with DUIs. You just didn't.
No,
you either threw their keys in the woods, or unless they were in an accident, or God forbid somebody got hurt. Yeah, they were going, but there was just too much to do. It was too busy.
Yeah.
When I came down to Florida, there was a huge emphasis on DUIs, and then they had moved back to BAC. It went from 0.10 to 0.08. Then, in Florida, we've got alligators. I had a whole half-day course on how to duct tape an alligator. I'm like, can't we just fucking shoot these things?
Yeah.
They don't want you shooting alligators. It's just very different down here. They're definitely more customer service friendly down here. In New York, we had tasers, but only the supervisors used them. Down here, like my first day of training, they handed me a taser in a box. They go, just put that in your trunk, and then, we'll get to that. And, part of the training was I had to get tased, and I absolutely hated that fucking thing. Like, you can mace me all day long, and twice on Sundays, I can fight through mace. I don't like that taser. Like, I really thought I was having a heart attack. I can't stand that thing. Somehow
I escaped having to get tased. I didn't get tased. I never carried a taser, but everybody did except for me. But by the time I was a sergeant, half the deputies had tasers, so I could just, they would just call me for the use of force, so I didn't have to have one really. But I didn't get tased. I didn't want to do that, man. I'm like you. Yeah, you can mace me or pepper spray me all you want.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't want to get tased, man.
Well, when they tase you, so when you're a cop, they don't shoot the hooks into you, right?
Right.
And the funny thing is, it was embarrassing because here I got 20 years with the NYPD. I'm in my early 40s, and I'm in this auditorium room, and like half the city was there. Like all the people that worked upstairs in the city offices, it's like their entertainment for the day.
Yeah.
And I made sure I didn't eat that morning because I didn't want to shit my pants. I didn't know how that worked. And you stand there, there's two guys standing in the back on either side, and you put your arm out, and they tape a lead here, and they tape another one to your crotch on your pant leg. And they're like, you ready? I'm like, yeah, I guess so. I guess so. And it's like, I could see how you can fight through that if you're adrenaline. Like, obviously I'm
Yeah.
calm. I know that nothing's going to happen to me. But I could see if your adrenaline was really pumping and you were motivated enough, you could fight through it.
The only time we had guys, if they were on PCP, they could just rip that stuff out and it didn't even affect them. And so, man, it was a couple of times we had some bad dudes and we'd shoot him up with that taser, no effect. I just made him.
Oh, when someone's dusted, of all the drugs,
Yeah.
and you know this, of all the drugs, dust is like, that's just pure evil. I mean,
God,
as far
PCP
as
was the worst, man. And in Compton, they were cooking that stuff out by the gallon. You could smell it in the air when they were cooking it. They called it water, cooking water. I don't know why they called it that.
Yeah, and dust. When I was in narcotics, there were 2 dust spots. One was in the Bronx on Daly Avenue. It was there forever. And there was one up in on the border of Spanish Harlem. And on buy and bust, you would get attack plans. So you don't want to send your undercovers to a heroin spot asking for crack because they might get hit with a baseball bat. So you kind of had a script, and we'd call it a set. So you'd go to one set, the undercovers would step off, they'd make their buys, they would step off, the dealers would continue selling. We'd watch them sell to another couple of people so you don't burn the undercover. We'd roll in, you lock them up, you put them in the P-van, you move to the next set, until you got 10, 15 bodies. And when I was we call it getting on. So when you're I would tell my undercover, stay the fuck away from that dust spot. Because when you recover angel dust, you got to be so careful with it. You have to wear gloves. It's like fentanyl. You got to wear gloves. It gives you a headache. I mean, I never smoked it, but I mean, I've handled it in packaging. And just the smell. It permeates even through the bag. I mean, it's bad shit.
Well, we had deputies in liquid form. They would get it and they would take the vial, they put it in their pocket, and then we had a female deputy had broken her pocket. Absorbs right into your skin. Next thing you know, she's undressing. She crawled out of the window onto the ground, and so there was you couldn't, if you had any liquid at all, you couldn't bring it right to the station. You had to have a hazmat people come out. And
what would they do with the liquid? Did they just blot it, or did they put it on?
They dipped the marijuana cigarettes or regular cigarettes in the cools. They dipped cigarettes in there. They paid so much for a half dip, a quarter dip, and so we would get these cigarettes that were dipped in PCP. Yeah. And so
when I was in narcotics, it was weed, and it was always in a paper envelope, and it was treated. So that smell, and even when it's I know the smell when it's burning, it's the same as weed. Weed has 2 different smells. Obviously, when it's burning, and if you've ever been in a facility where there's a couple of pounds of weed, it's a totally different smell.
Yeah, man, crazy. Yeah, I never wanted to work narcotics though. That was not my bag. But
it wasn't mine either. I thought at the time I was young and everybody was putting in for it. My partner put in. Everybody gets in. You're going to go to narcotics, right? You're going to narcotics, and I was like, I was so bored with it after the first 6 months because it's the same thing.
We had to make. You had to make rock cocaine arrests in South Central when you first got there. It was just that's what every day was. People throwing their rock and running. It was just everywhere. It was so bad. Yeah, 87, 88, 89, it was just the cocaine wars, and NWA was just starting. They were rolling through all the time, but they were always friendly to us. They didn't like LAPD. They didn't have any respect for them really, but they had to deal with us in the jail, so they were pretty respectful to us.
Who's NWA?
You remember the Ice Cube was in that with that group. NWA was the N-word with attitudes. F the police in the 502. Don't you remember that song? F the police in the 502.
No, that's not on my rap discography. What is it?
Yeah.
Discography?
That was probably, they were big in 88 or 9, in 90. Yeah, NWA, man.
It sounds familiar. But
they were all out of Compton, straight out of Compton, man. They were, unbelievable, but good times.
I don't know much. I saw the movie Colors.
Yeah, that's just how it was, too, just like that. Very accurate. Yeah. Crazy, yeah. Colors was a good movie. That was pretty accurate, actually, yeah.
I just watched that the other day. I had seen it when it first came out, and I saw it again. I like Robert Duvall.
I love Robert Duvall, yeah.
Great actor, though.
Any other books coming out that we can look for?
Yeah, I'm working on another NYPD one now. I don't have a name.
Okay.
That's the thing I struggle with writing. Like I'll get the book together because
Yeah,
all
and then you got to.
my books don't
Yeah.
have beginning, middle, end. They're just chapters filled with stories of things that happen on the job, interesting criminals,
Yeah.
cops, bizarre cops I worked with, shit that happened. I've written 6. Here's another one: the NYPD's Flying Circus, Cops,
Oh,
Crimes, and Chaos.
I did read that one
There's a
too.
story,
Yeah, I like
there's a
that one.
story in there about a cop, and it's true. He stole a horse and carriage. He was an Irish guy, but the Spanish cops used to call him El Diablo because if you worked with him, chances are you would either convert to Christianity or go to rehab. He was just not that much of a partier. And he was at this midtown bar with a couple of floozies at the bar, and he's having a couple of drinks, and one of those handsome cab operators walks in with the stovepipe, that top hat, and the felt thing. They take you around Central Park for $400 for like 15 minutes. And the guy was going into this bar to take a piss. So when he walked by El Diablo and the 2 girls, El Diablo said, "Hey," he goes, "can I take Seabiscuit for a ride?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, sure." And the guy went to the bathroom. El Diablo takes the 2 females and says, "Come on, he's a buddy of mine." Loads them into the horse and carriage, moves the blocks, gives the horse a crack on the ass, and it goes. And at first, it's fun. They're going around, Central Park West, and by the Plaza Hotel, and the horse is,
Oh my
But then
God.
the horse figures out he's an asshole. He doesn't know what he's doing. So the horse starts picking up speed. The horse is like, "Fuck this! I'm going to the barn to get some oats." He can't stop the horse and carriage. The girls are screaming. The horse and carriage is blowing lights, right? Bad. If a horse and carriage blows a light to get hit by a checkered cab, the fucking horse could get killed. So anyway, they go into Central Park. 2 other handsome cab operators notice this, and they go, "Hey, wait, that's Harry's horse and carriage. That's not, who's this asshole?" They chase, right? It's like a scene out of Ben-Hur into Central Park at night. So one of the horse and carriages gets in front of El Diablo, and the other one gets in back. And like the trotters at Yonkers Raceway, they slow him down. They get him to stop. The 2 girls jump out and run into Central Park, never to be seen again. The 2 horse and carriage operators start beating the shit out of El Diablo. They got on their phone. Their friend shows up. The cops from Central Park. Believe it or not, there's a precinct in Central Park.
I've never seen it. It must be near the. Is it in the upper? It can't be near 50.
Central Park. The Central Park precinct is Balls dead center in Central Park. There's a really good movie called Cops and Robbers with Cliff Gorman and Joe Bologna. It's about 2 NYPD cops in the 70s that rip off the mob. And the last scene of the movie is they drive a radio car through Central Park and crash through the gate of the parking lot in Central Park Precinct. You can go look it up on YouTube. It's called Cops and
I
Robbers.
can't believe I haven't walked by the precinct before. I've walked all over that park.
Oh, no, there's a precinct in there. So anyway, the cops are there. El Diablo is pleading with the cops not to lock him up. The horse and carriage operator wants him locked up, and he goes, "Take me to an ATM. I'll give you $500 right now." And the guy goes, "You'll give me $500 right now?" He goes, "Yeah." $500. The Central Park precinct cops take off. The horse and carriage operator is fine, and El Diablo lives another day.
Oh my God, that's a good story. That's great. Now, have you? Yeah, my book's a memoir too of my time in upstate and LA. Have you written any fiction? I'm inkling. I have the inkling to write a fiction, but I haven't yet.
I don't know if I can write a fiction. My last book that I published, if I can plug it shamelessly.
Please do.
It's called Confessions of a Catholic High School Graduate. And it's about the picture of a kid getting chased out of a confessional by an angry priest. That happened to me.
I like that. Wow.
Well, I grew up in the Bronx at a time where there still was corporal punishment. My parents thought, in public school I needed some straightening out. They sent me to Catholic high school, and I thought I was going to absolutely hate it. It was probably, other than my time with the NYPD, the best 4 years of my life. I met a lot of friends. It kind of got me ready for the NYPD because I think had I gone to public school, I would have definitely went in another direction.
Yeah, you probably would have went mafia. Hey, do you remember?
My dad worked. It's funny. My dad was a butcher. In the 70s. And he would take me he worked at a wholesale meat place. I'm 12, 13 years old. I'm making chopped meat and sausage on a Saturday. I don't know what's owned by the mob.
Yeah.
My father's not going to tell me. Like my dad was Irish. So one day my father sends me upstairs. He goes, "Go to the second floor." And I don't know, he sent me for something. So I'm going up to the second floor and this man comes bouncing down the concrete stairs, right? And he almost hit me. And the guy's laying at the bottom of the stairs, and his hands are all broken up. And he's like, "Help me, help me." And these 2 big goombas are coming down the stairs, and they're laughing. And they go, "Oh, Vic, don't worry about him. He's an old friend of ours," right? The guy's like, "Help, help." They picked him up like a bag of garbage, and I watched them. They dragged him out to the street, and they threw him out like with the trash. So I go to my father who's cutting steaks, and I go, "Dad, Carmine and Anthony threw this fucking guy down a flight of stairs, and, he's fucked up." My father goes, "Just keep working. I'll find out." So on the way home, I'm like, "Dad, what happened with that man?" And my father goes, "Some people just don't learn." And I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Fucking guy's a shoplifter. They caught him once before. They smacked him around, told him never to come back. Today he shows up. He steals a slab of ribs, shoves it in his pants. They catch him trying to go out the door. They brought him up to the second floor. They beat his ass, and then they put his hands in a vice and broke all his fingers and then threw him down the stairs." So I said, "Oh, all right." And that was the last time I went to work with my father. He goes, "You're getting old enough. You're seeing things. I don't want you around these people."
Yeah,
and that was heartbroken. In my book, I was like, like Saturdays and Sundays, I got to spend working with my dad, and that got taken away from me. But he did not want me in that world.
Yeah, we went a few years ago because we met somebody in L.A. through the department, and he owned some nightclub. There was like a meatpacking district, right? And they turned some of these places into nightclubs. And
the west side of Manhattan.
Yeah. Kind of these big places, bottle clubs or whatever they call them, yeah. Hey, did you know, have you heard of a guy named Joe Sullivan? I think they called him Joe Mad Dog Sullivan. He was a hitman out of New York.
Yes, Joseph Mad Dog, he just died a couple of years ago.
Correct, yeah.
He was in Sullivan County Correctional. Listen, I'm not an expert on Joseph Sullivan, but I've watched a lot of documentaries on him, and it's funny. He sounds, if you close your eyes, he reminds me a lot of my dad. Not that my dad was a killer, but the same kind of guy. His father was an NYPD cop.
Yep, that's right.
His father died young. He basically raised himself.
Correct.
And he was into robberies. He was a thrill seeker, and one of the families, I think it was the Genovese, used him from time to time because you had the Genovese and the Gambino crime family. They were going to build a Javits Center, a convention center in Lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that area in Manhattan was run by this Irish gang called the Westies.
Right.
And basically, the Westies would shake down businesses. They loan sharked. They, basically terrorized people in Hell's Kitchen. And what they wanted to do was weaken them so they could make inroads into there. So what they did was they had Joseph Mad Dog Sullivan kill. There was a guy by the name of Mickey Spillane who eventually was murdered, but he ran the Westies before Jimmy Coonan. So what they wanted to do was kind of knock the legs off the chair before they made their move, because they knew they couldn't get into the Javits Center, the construction of it, to rig the unions and anything without working with the Westies. So the way they did it was they sent Mad Dog Sullivan in there. He killed Eddie Kaminsky,
That's
went into
right.
a bar,
Yeah.
shot him. There was a Greek guy, Kapatos. He killed him. He killed about 3 or 4 of the heavy hitters.
Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Gambinos slid in, and Roy DeMeo, if you ever read the book Murder Machine, Roy DeMeo, to forge an alliance with Jimmy Coonan, whacks Mickey Spillane, and then now the mob is working with the Westies, and now they get the union jobs, and they're able to build a convention center and wet their beak.
That's right, yeah. Sullivan, he was the only guy to ever escape from Attica State Prison.
Yes, he did, and
Yeah.
he was on the run, and his rabbi was a guy by the name of, Ramsey. Guy was a high-powered attorney. His wife worked, Ramsey, I can't think of the guy's name, but he was in like the cabinet of Nixon or Ford, and that's how he was able to get paroled a couple of times. But then, finally, he went off the rails. I think he had a drug problem, and he killed a couple of people out in Long Island on a drug hit, and then he went up to Buffalo. He was in upstate New York.
He actually got caught near Rochester, yeah.
And that's where he got caught and was incarcerated for the rest of his life.
Yeah, my friend was, actually my parents too, right? So I'm from that area. So he was in Arundecoit doing a hit at the Blue Gardenia in Arundecoit. I forgot the name of the guy he hit, the owner of the restaurant. He hit coming out, so when he left, the driver pulled out of the parking lot and he had a headlight out, and then he spun out in the snow. And then a kid I met later, D. Giovanni, he pulled him over. And then Sullivan jumped out. He's got a bulletproof vest and a shotgun. He shot out the front of the police car, and my buddy, he leaned over and didn't get shot. And then Sullivan took off running, and he was on the run for a while, but they got him. And then one of my best friends who got hired by my dad at Caledonia, who ended up going to Monroe County Sheriff, he ended up guarding him while he was testifying or something. But, you know, he used to do 1,000 push-ups a day in the jail. The guy was, man, he was built, that guy. And it was interesting stories.
He wrote a couple of books.
Yeah, it was Tears and For Tears or something. You know,
I never
Tears,
read Tears
yeah.
for Tears. But
Yeah.
there's another book he wrote that I read that I loved. It's about a lot of famous New York State criminals that were upstate that he either bunked with or knew, and just explaining the prison culture. I can't think of the name of it, and I'd love to plug it so his family can make some money, but I can't think of it. But just go to Amazon and look up Joseph Mad Dog Sullivan.
I'm gonna, yeah. Because I asked the guy.
The wife's name is Gail.
Right. Yeah, I knew a guy that worked in Monroe County Jail. I go, does he really do 1,000 push-ups a day? He goes, oh, yeah, he does, man. Like 10, 20 at a time, all day long. He just does push-ups. But, you know, if you look at him, he was always wearing a suit and looking good. And, yeah.
He did time in New York. He did. I don't know if he did federal. I know he did time in Jersey for killing a guy. I mean, like, he was known. He was a brutal.
I heard he did. They thought he did like 60 murders. You know, did a lot of hits, man. I guess he fell out of favor. I think he went into place and did a hit on somebody, and the family was there, and then he just killed the whole family. I think they didn't like that.
I watched a documentary that they did on him, and he claims that he killed for the Genovese family a guy that was involved in the Philly. Philly had some turmoil where I think it's Chicken Man Testa got blown up by this guy Capernegro, and according to Joseph Mad Dog Sullivan, because I watched a documentary, he said that they lured him into a social club and then he shot him with a machine gun. And I mean, if true, I mean, he was involved in a lot of high-profile hits. What did your buddy say about him guarding him? Like, how was he?
Yeah, he would tell he was fine, but he was because my buddy joked with him, right? Because he got caught because his driver spun out, right, and you know, right in front of the cop, D. Giovanni, and then he had a headlight out. So my buddy was telling him, "Hey, we'll get a pizza tonight. This time I'll drive," you know, and but the guy said, Sullivan says to him, he goes, "Man, you know," he was telling the story. This one guy walked by me, like he had no fear of me. So I hit him in the back of the head with a hammer. You know, that was his mentality. You know, the guy walked right by me like he didn't fear me. It was just, oh my God! He told me a few stories. That's the only one I remember. But he said he was talkative. You know, but you know, a total different mentality. You know, obviously, yeah.
I mean, just watching him in interviews, he's just, you know, he's as serious as a heart attack.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of those guys. If he tells he's going to do something,
you're going to do it. Yeah. Somebody on a true crime podcast, they were doing a whole thing. I learned a lot about him that I thought I knew. They said that he, at one time, they contracted for him to do Frank Sinatra, and then they canceled the hit. Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
Yeah, so I don't know what happened there, but that makes sense to me after the stories you heard. I mean, it could have happened. Who knows?
I'm guessing if he was doing these hits for the mob, if he got caught, they knew he wasn't going to talk, and he never did.
Exactly, he never talked.
About some of the homicides when the people that hired him were dead.
Yeah.
I guess the thinking was, it's not going to come back to us because he's Irish.
Exactly, because he wasn't a made guy, right? That's what I read.
No. He was just, if anything, at best, an associate.
Right, yeah. So, amazing stories. I'm going to read that one book on him. But, all right, Vic, why don't we end this session? This has been a great time talking with you. I have no questions up, so it was just you and me talking. And, man, so what do you got going on? You got the writing going on, and now you got the new podcast. And what do you guys talk about on the podcast?
It's I bring on guys in law enforcement, and I'd love to have you on. And
sure,
a lot of NYPD guys that worked in different units. I've had a narcotics sergeant come on. Just guys to tell their stories about their time in the New York City Police Department. And again, the podcast is called, and this is the artwork for it, same as my book, NYPD Through the Looking Glass.
Good.
And for my books, just go in the Amazon book section, type in my name, Vic Ferrari, like the car. They'll come up. All my books are $10 paperback, $2.99 ebook download. My podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, wherever you can find a podcast. And if you want to get a hold of me for whatever reason, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at VicFerrari50.
Perfect. Vic, thank you so much. I'm going to put all the links in the description of the YouTube channel and also on the podcast platforms that this will go out to. like you say, iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, and all those good things. And it's been a pleasure rapping with you about the good old days and the differences between policing on the East Coast and the West Coast, and just good to hear these NYPD stories. I always had a thing for NYPD. I told you before I took the test back in '82. But I got hired with the LA Sheriff's Department first, so that's where I went.
Cliff, where'd you go wrong? We could have worked together.
I know it. We would have been good partners, you know. I think we would have liked the same food anyways.
Oh, yeah.
All right, brother, let's debrief after the show.
Tremendous in the food.
Oh, I know it. We're going to talk about that after the show. Stick around for debriefing, buddy. This has been Vic Ferrari, one of my best guests so far. All right, hang in there.
Thank you.